With my newfound interest in post-World War II German cinema, I decided to watch the film Stalingrad, Hunde wollt ihr ewig leben, or Stalingrad, Dogs Do You Want to Live Forever, from the year 1959 and directed by Frank Wiesba. Some consider this the predecessor to the more popular Stalingrad, which came out in the year 1993. Now let's delve into the plot of Stalingrad, Hunde wollt ihr ewig leben. The film opens with shots of German soldiers parading through the streets of Berlin as they are saluted by Adolf Hitler. A narrator's voice echoes in the background, explaining to the viewer the horrible fate to meet these men who appear so gallant and unstoppable as they parade in the streets. After showing pictures of dead men lying in the snow, the camera cuts to a German officer entering a building with a dog at his side. The narrator informs the viewer that we are in the Nazi-occupied Ukrainian city of Kharkov, 250 kilometers behind the front lines. It is now we are introduced to our main character, Lieutenant Colonel Gerd Vissa. Also inside the building is a Russian girl who is looking for work. As she leaves the building, Vissa follows after her. Vissa learns that the girl's name is Katya, and she's to be deported away from her Ukrainian homeland to Germany if he doesn't find a job by the next day. Vissa feels sympathy for the girl, and he visits one of his friends, Lieutenant Furman, to see if Furman can find Katya a job. Furman proceeds to find Katya a job at the military library. Later, as Vissa and German reinforcements are being sent off to the Eastern Front, Katya appears at the train station to inform Vissa that she is thankful for his help in finding a job for her. She says goodbye, and Vissa boards the train. Before it reaches its destination of Galach, the train stops suddenly. Vissa goes to investigate and discovers that Russian partisans have blown up the tracks ahead. Vissa gets a ride in a jeep to his destination. When he arrives, he is informed that he will be replacing a captain of Romanian troops in the German Sixth Army. Before the former captain leaves the front lines, he warns Vissa that he'll be working with a cowardly and untrustworthy German officer, Major Linkman. Vissa meets with General Cutriano of the Romanian army and is told that the men under Vissa's command have no tanks, no heavy guns, and no anti-tank weaponry. On November 11th, Vissa and his men are awoken by a frantic radio operator in the middle of the night who accidentally received a Russian transmission informing him of a Russian attack planned for 6 a.m. Vissa calls Lieutenant Colonel Kesselbach to ask for tank support in the upcoming Russian assault. Kesselbach obliges and at 2:30 a.m. orders his men to move and assist Vissa and his Romanian troops. At 6 a.m., the Russian assault begins. The Russians attack with armor and infantry. The Romanian troops, unable to defend themselves against the advancing Russian tanks, begin to retreat. Vissa, to support his retreating men, risks his life and destroys a Russian tank about to attack a German radio post. As the retreat continues, Vissa is ordered to destroy a friendly supply depot to prevent it from falling into the hands of the Russians. Vissa defies direct orders and instead orders his men to empty and take the supplies before torching the depot. This is one of the first examples of Vissa denying orders in order to ensure the well-being of his men. His decision to defy orders lets his men acquire a lot of food and blankets from the depot. These supplies will become very useful in the weeks to come. The men of the Sixth Army slowly begin to realize that their worst fears have manifested into reality. The poor defense against Russian attacks has caused Russian reinforcements to encircle the men from behind. The nearly 250,000 men are now trapped in an isolated pocket far behind the Russian lines. With little food, ammunition, and no winter clothes, the men are now in grave danger. After Hitler learned of the situation in Stalingrad, he is advised to allow the men to break ranks and fight through the encirclement, but instead he gives the order for the encircled men to dig in and defend. This would prove to be one of the worst decisions of Hitler's career. Supplies begin to be dropped in by air, but after Russians capture nearby German airfields, the supply runs cease, leaving the men to scrounge for food and supplies on their own. The entrapped men of the Sixth Army are given hope when they learn that a Colonel Huth and his men have broken through the Russian lines and are a mere 50 kilometers from the German pocket. But this hope is wrecked when Huth halts his advance out of fear from attack on his flanks. Vissa is ordered by General Paulus to become the battery officer in the city of Stalingrad. His partners/friends, Bose and Kramer, are to go with him. The men arrive at the 3rd battery positions and learn that the superior officer, Major Linkman, is the one in charge. Vissa remembers what he was told about Lincoln's incompetence at leading. The two men and Vissa are told that the battery has access to only 4 heavy guns, 38 men, 1 officer, and 4 non-commissioned officers. Vissa heads to a friendly machine gun post deep in the heart of Stalingrad, with Kramer and Furman accompanying him. Fires exchange between Russians and Germans, and a small battle breaks out in the streets. Suddenly, a Russian soldier comes forward waving a white flag and proclaims that the Russian officer wishes for a 30-minute ceasefire to collect their wounded and dead. The Germans oblige, and a ceasefire ensues. While the two sides collect their dead, Furman discovers a piano and begins playing it. Out of all the memorable scenes in this film, the one of Thurman playing the piano stands out as my favorite. As the deadliest war in history wages around them, these soldiers of both sides manage to find peace and happiness in a world so devoid of it. The fact that makes this scene so profound is that this ceasefire was a real event that actually took place in Stalingrad during the winter of 1943. The scene ends when the 30-minute time limit has run out. Men from both sides quickly scramble back to their positions. It's quite amazing to see the men change from enemies trying to kill each other to friends sharing food and listening to music together, and then straight back to killing each other. After the hunger from many days of little food begins to drive Wissa mad, he puts on a uniform of a dead Russian soldier and sneaks past the Russian guards. He arrives at a Russian breadline where he is shocked to see Katya from Kharkov is serving him soup. Katya also recognizes Wissa, and they share a conversation that they can never have a relationship because of them both being on different sides of the war. When Wissa returns to his men, he realizes that his friend Boza is dead. This causes Wissa to become furious at the incompetence of Major Linkman. He calls Linkman a coward for hiding in the basement not fighting the Russians. The Major refuses to fight. Instead, he becomes a traitor and attempts to run to the Russian lines and join them so he is not killed. As he is running towards the Russian troops, he is shot and killed in the back by Wissa. In the continuing days, General Paulus makes the decision to surrender instead of fighting at a lost cause. The encircled men drop their weapons and surrender to the Russians. The movie closes with the defeated Germans marching through the frozen landscape. All hope they had now lost to the Russian winner. I believe this film is an amazing example of German anti-war cinema. It shows us how the later years of Adolf Hitler's life he had gone mad with ideas of grandeur, believing his army was invincible. He underestimated the length that an invasion would take, allowing the bitter winter to set in. He underestimated the power of the Russian people as well, who would die to defend their motherland from the fascist invaders. The film also highlights the humanity in war. It shows that the enemy you are fighting aren't always the evil, bloodthirsty monsters you are led to believe they are. The enemies that we fought are just people like you and me, and all they needed was the hope that they could live another day. Thank you for watching my thoughts on Stalingrad, Dogs Do You Want to Live Forever? Please remember to subscribe and check out my Tumblr blog at wagedwars.tumblr.com for more World War content. If you wish to support this channel, check out the link in the description. Once again, I thank you very much for watching.